state government, especially from an elected point of view. And there are only 12 of us that are actually elected in the United States as insurance commissioners. The rest are appointed by governors. And if you have a Democratic governor, you get a Democratic platform. If you have a Republican, you get a Republican. In a couple of states, you have tenure for 6 years instead of 4, so they have a little more flexibility. But the average lifespan of a commissioner of insurance is about 25 months. That's just a little over 2 years. So far, I've been there 6 years, so I'm surviving 3 to 1 so far. Now, what we're going to do today, it's going to take me just a second to get this set for you, is I'm going to play for you a 6-minute video. And I want to put a disclaimer in before I play it for you. It's a controversial video. It's produced by Kaiser Family Foundation. It's about Obamacare and kind of what's coming down the pipe and where we are today. Some of you have seen past what we call YouTubes about Obamacare, but this one is about kind of where we are, and it sets the stage for me to tell you what's going on in Mississippi. It's a controversial subject, depending upon where you are, which side of the platform you may be on, but it's something that you need to know about because the train's still on the track and it's headed to us, and we're not off the track yet. And we've got to be prepared as a state to know what to do. So we're going to watch this, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's about to happen to you. Take me just a second to get, I want a microphone to be here so you can hear what's going on. Here, if I don't drop this dude, we're okay.
Well, we've towed it around enough years.
Yeah, we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it. We're gonna work very well.
Well, it's finally happening. After years of drama on Capitol Hill, a Supreme Court case, a presidential election, and a Mayan apocalypse that could have stopped it dead in its tracks but didn't. The marquee elements of the Affordable Care Act, sometimes called are about to kick in, and big changes are coming to health insurance in 2014. In the next few minutes, you'll get a pretty good lay of the land by once again watching your fellow Americans, the U-Tunes, find their way through the system. There are 4 main ways nearly all of us will experience health care once the health reform law goes fully into effect. About half of us will get insurance through our jobs, just like today. About a third will get covered by the government through Medicare and Medicaid. About 1 in 10 will buy insurance themselves. And unfortunately, another 30 million of us or so, just under 1 in 10, still may not have coverage at all. But let's begin in the workplace. Many Americans are already covered by their employers, and for them, not a whole lot will change. There will be some new advantages, though, like caps on how much you have to pay out of pocket, and free preventative care. The bigger changes are coming for those who work for larger companies but aren't covered now. That's because the government is going to require companies with 50 or more employees to cover full-time workers or pay a penalty. So more workers may find themselves covered. Smaller employers won't face the same penalties for refusing to buy insurance, but they'll be encouraged to do so. The government will be setting up special marketplaces to make it easier for small employers to take the plunge. Some will be offered temporary tax breaks if they do. And unlike now, insurers can't inflate prices if some employees are sick. So many of us will be getting covered at work. A lot of us will be covered with help from the government, just like today. Not much will change for seniors on Medicare. The law has already started helping with prescription drugs and better preventative care, and that will continue. Medicaid, on the other hand, is expanding to cover more of us, especially poor adults, many of whom aren't eligible today. If your income is low, Medicaid will cover you, most likely in a private insurance plan. But there's a catch. The Supreme Court ruled that governors and legislatures of each state should decide whether or not to be part of expanding Medicaid. In states that get on board, the feds will cover almost all the cost. But for those who don't, you may be left with the same options you have today if you're poor. So you'll want to check out your state's decision if you think you might qualify for Medicaid. Even with employer coverage and the expansion of Medicaid, a lot of us will still be left out. For those not covered or who find their work coverage too expensive, a new way to buy insurance on our own will be popping up everywhere. They're called health insurance marketplaces, though they may have a fancier name than that in your state. The health insurance marketplace is like a virtual insurance mega mall. Here you'll find private insurers competing for your business, and you'll be able to pick out how much coverage you want and how much you want to pay for it. From cheaper, high-deductible bronze plans to more expensive platinum plans. Still, all plans will cover a comprehensive set of services like hospital and doctor visits, paternity care, mental health care, and drugs. Most everything any of us need, at least when it comes to medical care. As with Medicaid, not all governors are on board to set up these marketplaces, but the feds will open their own in those states, and so you probably won't notice much of a difference. One big advantage of buying insurance through these new marketplaces is that the federal government will provide most people with a tax credit to make insurance more affordable if you don't have any other options and your income is below a certain level. In fact, most people buying on their own will be eligible for a tax credit and won't have to pay the whole premium themselves. And the marketplaces will make sure that insurance companies operate fairly under strict rules. They'll have to offer everyone insurance even if they're sick. And they won't be able to charge more for pre-existing conditions. Unlike today, men and women will pay the same price. And prices for older people will come down, while young people will pay more. To keep costs down for young people, though, they'll be able to stay on their parents' plans until 26 and buy low-budget catastrophic plans until they're 30. Of course, all these changes still don't mean insurance will come cheap. Most people buying their own coverage will end up paying less than the new health insurance tax credits. But some people will have to pay more, even though many of them will be getting better and more secure insurance. So let's be realistic. Not everyone's going to run out and buy insurance. Some might say, hold on a minute. If I can't be turned down or charged more, why not just wait until I get sick or injured to buy insurance at all? Well, first, you can only get coverage during special enrollment periods. So if you snooze, you may lose. And second, thanks to something called the individual mandate, if you're not insured, you pay a fine, making this option seem not nearly so clever. Still, if you really can't afford to buy in and can't get insurance anywhere else, the government will waive the penalty. So don't panic. By now, you've probably noticed a lot more people will be getting a lot more coverage. Where will the money to pay for that come from? Taxes. Many of them targeted at the health industry itself, even tanning services. Yes, individuals will pay too, mostly the wealthiest Americans, who will be paying more into Medicare. Also, hospitals and insurance companies participating in Medicare will get paid somewhat less. Not painless, but somebody's got to pay. So, as Americans prepare for 2014, how will you be covered? How would you like to be? Now's the time to figure it out and get on the path to setting yourself up for the best insurance at the best price. After all, who wouldn't want that?
Well, I think you get an idea of what we're looking at. I don't agree with everything that's in this video, but if I don't break my back, we'll be okay. But what you need to know is this is what the government's putting out that you've got to conform to. There are a couple of things that are going to affect most of us. Is if you're over 65 and you're on Medicare, things look rosy for you, but it's only for 2 years. In 2016, you're going to get another 1% increase in your taxes. Right now, we pay 2.9%, either as an individual or with your employer. That's who you work with. We've been doing that since 1965. The problem with all of this is that Congress is taking out $750 billion. That's $750 billion out of the Medicare Trust Fund to fund Obamacare. And what that means is that if you're my age, all of y'all are younger than me, but if you're my age, you've got to worry about whether or not a doctor will see you or a hospital will be able to see you, because there's less money available for what we call a provider, and that's hospitals and doctors, to cover aged people. So that's an issue. And I won't get into all the taxes. What I want to tell you a little bit about is just how it affects Mississippi and what I've done. And kind of the history of how we got here. And I know most of you want to leave fairly quick. Back in 2007, in December, Haley Barber called me and said, Mike, I want to talk to you about a plan that I've got to make insurance for individuals portable. That means you can move it around with employers in the state of Mississippi. It's an issue for us and we need to address it. And there's a think tank called the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative government foundation, and I'm a member of Heritage, by the way. Contrary to some of you may not believe that, but I am. The Heritage Foundation had a pretty good program. I didn't buy into it initially because I was worried about what would happen to the tax dollars. And Haley explained to me about Massachusetts and what had happened in Utah. And we looked at the program in 2009. We actually changed some of the laws that we had on the books, and those laws allowed the high-risk pool to operate anything that would be required by the federal government or the state or whatever I directed them to do to provide health insurance to the citizens of the state. Now, we already have a high-risk pool, and it's a nonprofit, so we fit within the federal law. We never envisioned that the feds would be passing the Affordable Care Act, but they did, and it became law. You had two options. You could have a state-based exchange or a federal marketplace. The pundits told us that the feds could not do what they're doing today, that it would never work. They didn't have authorization. We had a Supreme Court suit over it. Obama was reelected. Long and short, everything that was predicted by the Libertarians, the Cato Foundation, and several others did not happen. So I didn't think it would happen anyway, so I was prepared to try to figure out a way through the maze. A lot of people don't agree with what I've done, I realize that, but they're usually trying to stop something and they go about it the wrong way. I think there's other ways to stop what's happening to us. But be that as it may, we're at a point today that when we apply to operate the state-based exchange, the federal government, due to reasons that most of you know about, not necessarily what you read in the paper, but the fact that we could not interface with the Medicaid division because the governor thought I would add people to the Medicaid rolls, which we would not do. Just basically, they said no. In February the 7th, sent me a letter on the 8th. And when that happened, I kind of knew where we were. They offered us the ability to operate as a partner with them. And I said, no, I don't want to be a partner with the federal government in instituting Obamacare. I'll just tell you up front, I'm not going to do it. And if I do it, then what I have to do is accept all the complaints that come down the pipe. And I have 79 people in my shop, not counting my 50 fire marshals. And we don't have time to answer 500 complaints a day. In case you're wondering, I had 10,000 phone calls from the hailstorm in March. And in case you're wondering, that was 75,000 plus claims today, and of last week, we had paid out, and I say we, the insurance industry had paid out $384 million in claims. That's almost a half, we're going to end up close to $500 million. So my time is devoted strictly to handling consumer complaints and other issues. I don't have time to answer things on health insurance. I have very little authority on health insurance anyway. What I did retain was the ability to determine what the benefits would be if they were offered by the state or the federal government. The governor and I didn't agree on that, but I've convinced Bill that if I turned them in, I knew what would be here for at least for 3 years, and if the federal government picked the same one we would pick, because it's the largest small group in the state, they could change them next week. Other states like Georgia let the federal government, they defaulted to the federal government. The feds picked their mandated benefits. They've already changed them. And Georgia, consequently, has 49 mandated benefits. We have 10. And we're in pretty good shape in Mississippi. What does that mean? The price in Mississippi for insurance, health insurance, is one of the lowest in the nation. Georgia is one of the highest in the nation. And they just had 3 more companies pull out of their state the last week. So when we looked at all of this, it is what it is. It doesn't matter whether I agree or disagreed with the governor. What's happened. I told Phil up front, and since there are no reporters here, pretty well, and you got a camera on, I want to say it up front because we told you before, that my argument was very simple. As a state-based exchange, I could control it. I knew who would be on the exchange, what plans would be offered, and we had a little more control than we could control the rates to a limited degree and the plans that were offered. The governor felt that if we had a federal exchange, it would go kaput and go away and it never would happen. Well, you know the answer to that. It's going to happen unless something else goes on. And I said, Governor, I want you to understand where I'm coming from. It's not that I'm disagreeing with you. I'm just telling you, if you endorse the federal marketplace, better known as the federal exchange at this point, you are forever giving away our ability to regulate health insurance in the state of Mississippi. It's a pretty simple deal. If you can give me one reason not to file the forms I'm filing, I won't file them. But it's got to be a valid reason. Not because you can't say I don't trust the federal government, because we all agree with that. You know, it's an issue for us. So where we are today is this. We set out to start a free market shop exchange. That's where small employers could go and find health insurance for their small companies, 50 and under. And that's kind of still where we are. So I've looked at all the law, and I've asked the federal government to do this. When we submitted a blueprint, we were the only state in the union to be turned down. And I've told the feds, I want you to change the regulations and a pleading that we made to them. We want the regulations changed to where I, as insurance commissioner, can develop a shop exchange that's free of the federal government, no involvement of the federal government, run by a nonprofit in our state for small employers. Now, you say, why in the world would you want to do that? Real simple. If you do not have insurance for small employers, where are they going? They're going to leave the state. People work for benefits. And when you look at the things that people work for, and we've done surveys for thousands of people in this state. Now, I didn't bring all that with you because the program would be way too long. But the number one issue that we found, besides having a job, was the benefits and the salary. When you look at an employer, you ask them what's the most important, and they would put benefits down there at the bottom as number 8 and 9, but we found it was number 2. And when you started looking at the manufacturing sector, benefits are probably the most important thing that a person stays employed with in a large company. Well, a lot of things have changed since February. The federal government has changed the period for fining large corporations for 1 year. They deferred it for a year. They haven't done anything with the small employers because they're not subject to the same fines, but the small employers are in a donut hole where they can't find employment insurance for the people that work for them. And that's become an issue. Now, when I say employment insurance, I'm talking about employee insurance, health insurance. The issue became one of what should we do as a state to keep people in these areas in the state that need to have jobs. And the bottom line is that we have to have two things. We have to have at least one carrier in every county in the state, and we had to have at least some type of small business health insurance option for people. In June, the governor called a special session to address the Medicaid issue. I don't have a dog in the hunt. I don't mess with Medicaid, don't want anything to do with Medicaid. I know too much about it from my years in the legislature. But the House and the Senate voted not to extend Medicaid. They did reauthorize the existing bill, but they don't expand it, which means that it's status quo for the way we address Medicaid. The governor and the legislature and the leadership seems to think if we take the expansion of Medicaid, it will cost us a lot of money years down the road. It's going to cost us a lot of money no matter what we do in this case. But the law is pretty specific. If you don't expand Medicaid, the people that are under 100% of poverty, which is $11,490, cannot receive or buy on the marketplace health insurance. And when you look at the people between 100% of poverty and 138, which is the $15,800 plus dollars that you saw for a single individual, we have about 65,000 people in this category. It's what we call a donut hole that would qualify for Medicaid if it were expanded but have no insurance today. And my game plan, and the one that Haley and I worked on, was to take these people and put them into the state-based exchange and let the federal government pay for 98% of their premium. I got a ruling from the feds about 2 months ago that will allow us to do that. We can take those same people if we want to, although I'm not in the marketing side and I'm not going to do it for them. I've told the hospitals that we would work a plan up for them to do it. We can put at least 65,000 people into the federal marketplace, and the federal government will pick up 98% of their premium. Think about what I'm saying. If the average premium, just pick a number, is $500 a month, $6,000 a year, 2% of $6,000, you with me so far, is about 120 bucks when you think about it. So we had, you got a question, Pete?
2% of $600 is what? 2% is $12.
Well, for the year, what, $12 times for the year is about 144. It figures out somewhere like that. So here's what we found. We could put them on the federal marketplace and let the feds pick up 98% of the premium. And the federal government's not happy about that, but we found a loophole. If they're going to put it to us, we're going to put it to them too. And what that does, it keeps people off the Medicaid roll. You say, why is that important? Every time we put somebody on a Medicaid roll in the state of Mississippi, it costs the state $2,000 to $3,000. The minimum's $2,000, depending upon the size of the family, and the max is $3,000. Do the math. Let's say it's just $2,000 and we only put $50,000 into the federal marketplace. It's $100 million a year savings to the state of Mississippi. It's closer to $200 million a year. Now, I don't know what the legislature and other folks can't get about that. To me, it's pretty simple. But as it is, I was able to get a waiver from the feds, and I think that we can put all of these people on the Medicaid. So we got a game plan. I won't bore you with all the details. To put these people on the federal marketplace if I had coverage. Well, after the session was over, the Democrats tried to say that I should have a state-based exchange, and I argued with the Democrats. I don't need that authority. I already have it today. If you pass a law, the feds aren't going to let me have a state-based exchange anyway. Don't do it. You're going to make it look bad for all of us. But they tried, they lost. I found myself on July the 1st with 36 counties in the state with no coverage. I'm going to show you this quickly on a computer.
I'm going to talk. I'll talk loud so you can hear me a little bit. These are the counties that had no coverage with the blue dots. That's where we have Humana now. And the green dots, we had coverage. I think I've got this is a little better map, but it'll give you an idea of where we are. If it's blue or light blue up here at the top, that means you have at least 2 carriers. If it's green, you have 1. It's Magnolia. If it's dark blue, you have Humana. These are the geographic rating areas. When you look at the rating areas, you've got 6 rating areas. The Gulf Coast is one area. At one time, we had no coverage in Pearl River, no coverage in Hancock, no coverage anywhere along the river. I've got a map. I just didn't want to put it up because it'll make you sick when you look at it. But these are how we rate rates in all the areas of the state. Area 2 is around Tupelo, Mississippi, because you have a big hospital there. You get pretty good rates. The area around Area 3, which is Warren, Hines, Rankin, Madison, Copiah, and Simpson County, has really good rates also. Now, the paper has said that I've said the rates are competitive. They're competitive if you compare them to the marketplace today, but they're too high. There's a rule that says rates cannot exceed, for someone like me, 3 times what you charge a 30-year-old. Let's say I was 64. You can figure the actuarial rate on me fairly simple. I'm an older person. I'm a known entity. They know a little medical history, and they can do this for the whole population in this age bracket. And I pay $900 a month for health insurance, whether I'm in the marketplace or not. That's what I would pay. If you're 30-year-old, the law says it's 3 to 1. Simple math. It would cost a 30-year-old $300 a month. You with me? Here's the rub. The 30-year-old can go on the free market today and buy the same insurance for about $120. So they're looking at a 180% increase in the insurance premium. If I'm 30 years old and I see that rate staring at me, I'm going to pay the $95 fine to the federal government, and I'm going to go buy my insurance in the free market. So that's another reason we want the shop exchange. The federal government has nothing to do with us. Looking at rates in Tupelo, Mississippi, and this is a good, can y'all see that? In Tupelo, I took a 27-year-old non-smoker silver plan. That's the plan that has to be offered in the state. You got 4 versions of that, but the average monthly premium is $278. Now that 27-year-old can probably buy that same insurance in the open market for about $98 a month. You know what they're going to do? They're going to stay on their parents as long as they can when they turn 27, and not going to buy in the open market. From the feds, they're going to buy in the open market. So that's we're trying to balance the cost for people. If you're 62, you live in Tupelo, the average premium is $763. I have slides for other areas of the state. I did one for Gulfport, And it scared me so bad because Gulfport, Hancock County, Bay St. Louis, Waveland, all of that area there, Pearl River, Poplarville, Picayune, their rates are almost $900 a month for a 62-year-old, and they're about $120 higher here, almost $400 for a 27-year-old. That's because there's no medical facilities there to take care of folks. So when you have 36 counties that compose 1.2 million of your population and no health coverage, what I was looking at was 11 to 21 hospitals closing up. Let me name them for you. Clarksdale, Cleveland, Greenville, Leland, Indianola, Greenwood, Winona, Grenada, Kosciuszko, Louisville, Mississippi, Morton, Forest, Laurel, Mississippi. Just keep going down the list. Columbia, Mississippi, and all the hospitals in Adams County along the river, they were all going to close unless we did something. I didn't hear a word from the medical community. And I'm very upfront with it. I said, do y'all not care about what's going on? We heard nothing from the Hospital Association because they said, it'll never happen. We don't think the federal government's going to let us close these hospitals. The federal government's not going to bail them out. So we were able to talk Humana into covering these 36 counties. Already had 4. Blue Cross turned us down, United turned us down because it's complicated because you got computer problems, you got to do actuarial studies on the population that's in these counties. Humana already had a filing with us in May. I cut a deal with the federal government right before the 4th of July that I would help them recruit someone. Yes, I helped recruit the 36 counties. You put that on tape. And I did it for 2 reasons. One, it's not right that we would leave 1.2 million people out of this system just because of politics, one. And number 2, if you close the hospitals in the Delta, you'll never be able to hire the nurses and get the doctors to go back without paying them some type of bonus. And you can't fix it once it's broke. I think it became a problem that was just incurable. It's easy to say, well, look at the medical facility we have in Jackson, Mississippi. It's wonderful for us that live here, but if you live in the Delta, you can't wait 3.5 hours to get to Jackson, Mississippi to get medical care. You won't make it. It was a simple deal to me. You can call me whatever you want, but I'm pretty pragmatic about a problem. I see a problem, I want to solve it, and that's the best way we saw to solve it. So we got these folks here, and my deal with the feds was simple. If I get somebody for you, what are you going to do for me? Because this is a tit for tat. And they said, resubmit your shop. So now you know what I've done. I will be approved the first week of September. The 30-day waiting period will be over, and we can do the shop exchange. I'm going to show you some real quick slides, and then we're going to talk about a couple of other things. But the shop basically is an economic development plan where we can at least have health insurance available to small employers. Now, granted, most of them are not going to pay the high rates, but what they will do is this. They will do a defined contribution plan. Let's say that you have 10 employers in the air conditioning business, and you've been buying the minimum plan for your employee that's on your payroll. You don't buy it for the family, but you let them pay for the family if they want to do that. So we can say that that employer will put up $6,000 a year on a defined contribution plan and give it to the employee to buy health insurance. The employee may not be married. Let's say they're 35 and they're really healthy and they want a high deductible of $5,000 a month. They can go out into the marketplace and buy that plan for $4,000 a year. So what happens to the other $2,000? We are going to require on a defined contribution plan that they put it in a health savings account. Y'all hear what I'm saying? So if you do get sick and you have appendicitis or something that happens to you, you'll have the emergency money to have the emergency surgery on your big deductible. The federal government now does not like HSAs. That's what we call health savings accounts. So I'm having to work with the feds on whether or not they're going to allow us to do that. I don't think they can stop me. They have asked me to come to Washington on the 18th to discuss the issue with them, but I think we're going to win that battle. We're just at a point we can win it. I could roll the shop out November the 1st. We were far enough along in our technology and our advances on what we've done to roll it out this year, but I put everything on hold. The technology that we developed, the dollars that we spent, we gave to Idaho and New Mexico with the understanding that they would give that technology back to us if we ever needed it, if we wanted to do a state-based shop, which I think that's where we'll end up a year and a half from now.
because we will not have the millions of dollars it will take us to develop the shop. But if I can get the technology back, we can do it fairly easy. We will still use the high-risk food for the shop, and it's going to happen. I will not roll it out, though, in November or December. I will roll it out sometime in the mid part of next year, simply because I do not want it to be confused with Obamacare. It's just, it's a free market exchange like you have in Utah and Massachusetts.
These are timelines, just so you get an idea of what we have here. The applications, and you'll see that I was able to get some waivers. The applications all had to be approved by May the 3rd. If you're going to operate in the state, I got a waiver till the 22nd of July, which that's when Humana agreed to do what they were doing. And I had till the 31st of July to have all my rates in, which we met the rates. I still control the rates too. That was another part of the deal. That's extremely important for us here in Mississippi. So this gives you an idea of where we are. The reason I want this slide up here is simple. Look at the rates on taxes over here. You've got 3.5% goes to the federal government on every dollar you pay into the exchange to support it. You've got reinsurance premiums at $5.25 per month, per member per month, that goes to the federal government. The state of Mississippi has got to pay $12 million. These are plans, it's not just policies, it's plans, self-insured plans will have to pay this. The federal government will collect $60 million out of Mississippi just on this tax alone. Then you got risk adjustment fees, that's 8 cents per month per member. That's 90 just do the math, if you want to do it back there, Pete. 8 cents times 12, it's 96 cents a year. We don't know where the money's going. We know it goes to some research institute to look for ways to improve health, but it hadn't been developed. They're just going to collect the money. Let me get you another one that happened last week, and I may file suit over this. The federal government put a ruling out last Wednesday that said that if you're a nonprofit hospital and you treat too many people for free, what we call indigent care, that do not have insurance, you're going to be fined $50,000. I don't know if that's per year or per person. Today, the fine's $50,000 if you walk into an emergency room and they refuse to see you. The hospital is fined $50,000 from the get-go. That may be what we're looking at here. Now, we asked for the reason behind this, and the reason is pretty simple. If the feds can make the nonprofits move up into the profit center, they'll have to pay taxes. You hear what I'm saying? It's always about tax money. Over half of the hospitals in our state are nonprofit. And we would basically shut down half the state. So I'm addressing that issue also. We still have some tricks up our sleeve that we're going to pull on them, so just watch, because we may make national news again. But this is wrong to shut down nonprofit hospitals. It is absolutely a tragedy that a travesty, that we would have a government that would fine us for not treating people and yet turn around and fine us if we do treat them. It just does not make sense to me. So it's got all kind of issues. It's controversial, I know, but it's part of my job, and I just live with it every day, trying to figure out how to best serve them.
I don't understand how.
We've got a president that doesn't care about you and I. He cares about his agenda, and his agenda does not include us. We're becoming a country of have and have-nots. The middle class is disappearing rather rapidly. And what you've got is a country that's primed for anarchy if we're not careful. These are some of the benefits that you would see if you were in buying on the individual market versus a small group. Small group would not have maternity benefits in it, so that makes it very cheap, really, because the rates are the same for everybody that's not in the small group. But basically, you get the same benefits with the exception of maternity.
These are most of this stuff is, I do presentations for employers. In case you wonder what I do, a week ago I was in Tupelo all day for a presentation, got on the airplane, flew to the Gulf Coast, did a presentation that night. The next morning, had a mitigation on the Gulf Coast, flew back up here, and Wednesday I spoke. Thursday of this past week I was at a 7 o'clock meeting in Vicksburg, speaking to the Kiwanis Club, did Canton at noon on Thursday, and Thursday night I went to Mississippi State to have a drink, you know,
Good for you.
alumni deal, and people started asking me, I just put a hat on
They had
so
to
nobody knew who I was. But we work, and I hired, the guy that I had running this, nobody can make more than $90,000 a year in our shop, except the deputy. They can make $1 less than I make, and I really don't make $90,000 a year because I do deferred comp and all this other stuff. But bottom line is, I can only pay this lawyer about $85,000 a year. And I made a deal with him that if he would stay with me until we got to where we were going, he could write his tickets. He stayed with me, and the feds turned us down. He went to work for over $200,000 here in Jackson, Mississippi, because he's one of the experts in what we do. I found another person who worked for Blue Cross and United who has a law degree and was in transition. His wife's a lawyer, Bob Williams, and he's been on board for about a month. And he and Aaron Sisk, the guy that used to work for us, worked together very well, and we just hit the ground running. Now, I've lost 8 employees since the feds have turned us down, but that's just another issue. You always have turnover in state government, but state employees have not had a pay raise in 13 years. Well, 11 actually, but if you look at us, the elected officials have not had a pay raise since 2000. You're not going to get people to run and do what I do for $90,000 a year unless they're trying to move up and do something else. I'm just telling you, that needs to be addressed. And that's a mission I've got for that's an advertisement for what I'm trying to fix. We need to pay people for doing the jobs they do. So the rest of this is an interesting little slide. It's too complicated to get into because it's long. It talks about the taxes and what the small employers have to do and some of the things that we require them to do. And we swap all of our information with the law firms in town. We have a web place they can go to and get info from us. Pepper Crutcher, who works for Bosch and Bingham, has become the employer expert. He goes around and makes a lot of talks and uses a lot of our slides and the reporting requirements, the Internal Revenue Service. This is a shop timeline. I've kind of wanted you to see a little bit about what we told the feds. All of these stars are going to move over in about 3 months because I don't want to be involved with the rollout in January of what's coming home. But it gives you an idea of what we're doing. Where to go if you want to look at stuff. You can go to our website. It's real easy to find, www.mid.ms.gov. Easy place to go. I'm going to turn this thing off, I hope. It'll cool off now.
Let me briefly mention 2 other things to you. The National Flood Insurance Program is run by the federal government. I have very little to do with the flood program. If I call the feds about, somebody calls them and complain about their flood, the feds will say, are you the property owner? We say no. Are you with the county government? We'll say no. Are you an agent and broker that writes for the federal government? We'll say no. We're the insurance commissioner. We're regulators. We can't talk to you. And they click, hang the phone up. They absolutely refuse to talk to us. I don't think that you will see a legislative solution to the flood or the health insurance problem. The flood problem is one that's really acute to us. October 1, flood rates will go up automatically 20% per year until they're actuarially sound, which we don't know what that means. The federal government just arbitrarily picked a number. And if you live in a high-risk zone, they go up 25% if you're grandfathered. If you live in Pass Christian and you have a second home, and let's say you rebuilt after Katrina in 2008, you're paying about $600 a year for flood insurance. That flood insurance will go to $12,000. I hope you all heard what I said, from $600 to $12,000. And these people, you know what's happening? Their property becomes worthless. Doris, you'll appreciate this. Your tax base drops at the same time this happens. And we've got issues of what we should do in the Gulf Coast and what we should do in the Mississippi Delta. When we looked at the problem of who was subsidized, we found that almost half of our policies in the Mississippi Delta for poor, economically disadvantaged individuals. Of course, I can't get Benny Thompson on board to support what I'm trying to do, but you're not going to get a congressional solution to it. Dan Cochran's tried to do resolutions, Wicker's tried to do resolutions, Palazzo, all of them voted for the bill, didn't know what was in it, just like Obamacare. But stay tuned. You may see us do some things really radical to stop what the feds are doing, and it'll probably be done this week. I'm trying to get New York State to do it for me, but they have Manhattan's at risk. I don't know if y'all are familiar with what's happened in Manhattan after Sandy, but the issue is real simple. Mississippi's been remapped. New Jersey, none of New York, 4 counties in Florida have been remapped. The remapping in Florida, in Pinellas County, that's where St. Pete and Tampa are located, resulted in 40% of the properties there being in the floodplain, and their rates are going to be like the people in Pass Christian. They're going up 8, 10, 12,000%, depending on where you live there. And the governor there is in a tizzy because they didn't realize that was going to happen. And Rick and them over the weekend, this is Rick Scott, the governor, and Kevin McCarty, the commissioner there, have looked at pulling out of the National Flood Program. I've got a better solution, and if I can get the AG to go along with us, we'll let him file the suit, but we're going to ask for a restraining order for at least 6 months to a year. Hopefully we would have a budget by then, and then if you get a budget, you can amend the law. If you don't get a budget, then we'll just ask for another extension. But that's our way. We think that we can get it stopped, but it depends upon, I don't have the money truly to file for an injunction because it costs money to argue in federal court, but I've got some volunteers, and we're trying to convince Jim Hood that he ought to be the lead for us in Mississippi. And since he can't tell me not to sue somebody today, then if he doesn't agree to do it, it puts him in a political nightmare. You follow what I'm doing? And so we can go out and hire our own people. So you'll see some action for us. The feds may actually, we've asked the Obama administration, I'm putting on a different hat now, to just waiver, you know, he waves his hand and disregards the law, just wave his hand one more time for the National Flood Program. But we can't get him to wave at us, so we're trying to get him to wave. If we could do that, we could avoid the lawsuit. But they're not going to give us any relief down here. It's just that simple. They don't care about Mississippi. It's too bad. So we'll do some things there. I think I went over my time. My speech was actually on a little piece of paper today. Fire Marshal Office, I do want to tell you that we're giving out 50,000 plus free smoke alarms and fire alarms. Put one in Pete Perry's cabin at the Shelby County Fair. He had one in his closet, been there 12 years, and we finally put one up, a brand new one. Got a 10-year battery. He can't take the battery out of it, so it's permanently built into it. But why am I on smoke alarms? We've reduced fire deaths in Mississippi to one of the lowest we've ever had on record since we've been keeping records, and we were the highest in the nation per capita in fire deaths. So we've done a lot to stop fire deaths in this state, and you do it by education. And you do it also by putting smoke and fire alarms in homes, and we've got them where, for hearing impaired, we've got every type you can think of. Blinking lights, and we're putting them in at the rates, and we have to beg, borrow the money to get money to buy these things. The feds gave me 1,000 of them, and they cost about $10 to put them in. That's what we pay for them wholesale. When we did the paperwork for the federal government, we were paying like $42 a fire alarm. Think about it, I had to get a waiver signed, I had to have the address, I had to have a GID, geographic index on the home. It was worse than doing taxes. It was horrible. And I said, I don't want your money. I don't want anything to do with it. And so what we've done, we've been able to buy 4 times as many fire and smoke alarms with the monies that we have, and not going through the federal government. So that's some of the other things that we do. I'll be happy to take questions. Did I go over too much, Mary?
No.
Okay.
As long as we're sitting here, you can keep talking. So I've got a question about, if Mississippi could have its own flood and wind insurance, how much cheaper would it be?
Only. Yes, ma'am, Laura.
How is the federal government going to deal with not being able to get into our medical records if they don't have the exchanges through which that can flow?
I will tell you, I don't know the answer to that. I do know that the beta, which is the testing characteristics that they do, has been a total failure. We told them from the get-go it's not going to work. But you got to put yourself in my shoes. It may not work, but if I got 3 million Mississippians that are dependent upon keeping hospitals open, I got to figure out a way around all of that. Medical records, though, I don't think that that's going to be an issue. The Medicaid and Medicare divisions under CMS have required doctors to get at least 10% of their records up to the federal standard prior to December of last year, and now I think the goal is 50% by October 1, and they should be 100% compliant by sometime in June of next year. Now, what I am told by the hospitals is that just about every hospital is compliant on the medical records. You know what I'm talking about, will you?
An electronic medical
Electronics,
record.
and I'm not up to that, don't want to be involved in it. I'm the insurance, I'm supposed to be a regulator. It's supposed to be an easy job. George Dale told me, he said, you know, Chaney, if you'll run for this, he said, I'm going to lose, Gary Anderson's going to beat me, but if you'll run, I'll help you get elected, and it's an easy job. I called George up and I said, what the hell are you telling me now? Tell me that one more time. But I don't know what they're going to do. I just tell you that. I know it's a problem. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to get into medical records. That's a HIPAA violation. I'm not about to get into it. Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question. Commissioner Chaney, I want to understand the 50 employees and below that you're talking about. You said the federal government will pick up 98% of the premium.
Not for groups, not for the small employers, no.
This is for the individuals.
Individuals only.
Okay. And then who pays for that 98%? Where's that money come from?
It all comes out of the tax bill from all of us.
Right.
But let me make it clear to you. I know where you're headed. I understand that too. And I understand grants and all of the other things. But if you don't take the money, they're going to give it to somebody else. They got the money to do it with. And we're going to pay for it one way or another. If we take the 100% of Medicaid, you and I are paying for it. I can tell you up front. If we don't take it, you and I are going to pay for it anyway. The best thing we can do is to try to elect people that think like we do. And we cannot afford for the Republican Party to be so polarized like we are today. We're so polarized within our own party that we don't get along. And you've got to be able to get along. I read the headlines in the paper about the GOP, this and that, catering to the Tea Party, the right wing, and I said, that's malarkey. That's not necessarily true. Because I read polls just like everybody else does. What happens is the people that are elected under those auspices are the ones that normally are so far out and get the press. There are a lot of folks in Washington that want to try to find some common ground to solve this problem. And the Obama administration could care less about the Republican Party. Just think about what I'm saying to you. They don't want us to be united. They don't want us to think. I may not agree with a lot of folks in government, but let me tell you something. When they vote and we all make a decision, whether I like it or not, I stay with them. We should have done that on the state-based exchange, but that didn't happen. That's water on the bridge. I can't change it. I would just say that we need to be more tolerant and look at long-term effects of what we do when we vote on something. If you don't, you know, we're all in the same boat. You shoot a hole in it, we're all going down together.
You're using the word tolerant, but we've been tolerant for years. Ever since I've been voting, and I was 21 back then when you started voting, that's the word that I've heard. And we continue to be tolerant, sir, and we continue to lose ground. So I understand what you're saying. There is the right way to do things, but I do believe that there are some principles and some lines in the ground that we need to adhere to, and we need to say, no, we're not backing out. But I don't see that in Washington. I see that our leadership, it continues to back up, and the Democrats continue to roll all over us.
Well, I hear you, and my definition of tolerant may be different from yours. At the risk of being a little risque, I will just say, I heard Barty Frank on the radio. Have y'all heard about this? He said, when I was in Congress, I thought being gay would be the worst thing in the world. He said, but my wife and I have better approval than the Congress does today. Congress is horrible, and I would tell you, when I talk about tolerant, I'm talking about being able to work with Speaker Bonner. And I know Alan and Greg and Palazzo, and I talk to them quite frequently because of issues that we get involved in. And they're looking for some way to find a way to solve the problems that we're having. And sometimes the only way to do it is to do what's not popular, and that's to keep voting against the budget. You know, now Wicker,
I support that.
Roger Wicker did a great job of people misunderstood when he voted to bring this bill out on immigration. It wasn't a vote for immigration, it was a vote to get it out on the Senate floor so they could vote it down, which they did. So you gotta trust the people that you elect to go to DC. I don't call Alan every day and tell him how to vote and tell him what I think. I want him to see if there's anything I need. If I got a real problem in Mississippi that the feds can handle, I can call Alan and I can call Greg, and I will tell you, we got a good congressional delegation. We really do, and we need to keep them. And to that effect, I don't know what's going to happen with Thad. I'm a Thad Cochran person. I want to make it real clear. I supported him in '72 when he ran against Boat Run. I'm from Vicksburg, Jane, as you well know. What a proper thing to do. And I like Thad Cochran. If he doesn't run again, you'll have everybody and their brother running. I will not be one. I have no desire to move up anywhere in government. I'm happy where I am. I am running again. I'm on a mission to do some things, and I want to change it. On what happens on insurance rates. And by the way, I'll just tell you, no reporters in here now. You cut it off in just a second. Cut it off.
Her video